Morning, folks.
I'm not sure that robot bosses is a new thing. I can think of at least 5 bosses I've had over the time that was like working with a robot, so I'm not sure that's new. And I'm definitely a human being. I know that because you'll see I've got this big plaster on the back of my neck where I've slipped a disc. So if I was AI, I wouldn't suffer from this problem, which actually is probably not the best advert to kick off with for human beings, those of you that might deal with sick days and things like that within your organisation. But there we go. I do work for Google, but despite that, I'm not here to talk about how the internet is doing amazing things or how technology is shaping the way that we all work and live today. No, not because that's not important, but because actually over the next 2 days, we're all going to spend time just filling our heads with new stimulus, if you like, around how we work and the challenges we solve and the opportunities we maximise. Yet one thing is consistent, us. Human beings, if you like, and the importance of how we show up to any situation where good stuff happens. There's a lovely quote from Kevin Kelly, who is the founding editor of Wired magazine. At the end of the day, we are not lacking in knowledge and technology in the world. And actually, any technology that doesn't exist yet, Moore's law means that actually we can actually quite accurately predict when it will happen. The biggest challenge is the imagination for what to do with it. And so that's my goal today, is how do we tune ourselves up just to remind ourselves of the importance of us as people and how we show up in any innovation process. This is quite an old, it's a few years old, this statement, but it's been backed up by the World Economic Forum. So the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs study tells us that by 2020, creativity will be the number 3 most demanded skill in the world of business. And that's not surprising, right? We've already heard Tom touch on it. In a world where any job or part of your role where accuracy, productivity or efficiency is the main aim, we will not be, that's going to become a commoditized market because of a global workforce. People can do it cheaper, or technology, things that can do it faster, more accurately and without a bad neck. So that's good. That's a good thing. Currently number 10 as the most demanded skill. So I think that's brilliant. Because that's what human beings do well. Tom's just said that's the thing that we offer. The ability to look at things a bit differently, the ability to trust feelings and go with emotions. Adobe agree. Adobe every year they do a study with execs around the world in business, and they know, and they're told that 3 out of 4 people in work believe that creativity is vital to unlocking economic growth in their organisation, in themselves, in society. So we know it's there. I don't think we could keep going with stats and quotes and so on. Here's the scary bit. Despite that, only 1 in 4 people believe they have the permission to be creative at work. And Adobe refer to it quite nicely. They call it the creativity gap. There's a 50% gap in the difference between people who believe creativity is vital and those that feel that they have the ability or permission to do it. So with that in mind, that's what today is about. It's just about a tune-up before we go into lots of great sessions and workshops to unlock our thinking around how we might approach these challenges or opportunities in different ways, just to remind ourselves of the importance of how we show up into those situations and back in the business. How we are. So let me ask you that question. How are you? How are you? All good? All okay? It's the most asked question in the world of work, the most asked question, yet the one that we give the least consideration probably to answering. It's an autopilot response, right? Those of you that live in the UK, you'll agree that normally we just go, fine, how are you? Fine. Never just fine. At work, how are you? Busy. And if it's your boss asking, good busy, but busy. But we know it is. How we are at any given moment has a huge impact on our ability to do great stuff. We all experience it. There are days when everything is effortless. We're bombarded with requests and asks and tasks and challenges and problems, and yet we just fly through. We deal with it all. Yet the very next morning, we are the same person with the same technical expertise and ability, and yet because perhaps the avocado wasn't quite ripe enough, yes, we do get that complaint from some of my colleagues, we lose the plot. I've lost it. I'm unable to think. So just recognise the importance of how we are. So let's get that energy going right now. That's my job this morning, just to energising tune-up. So we're going to get that energy going right now. What I'd love you to do is just put whatever you've got in your hands down on your chairs and just stand up and turn to face a partner. If you're looking at the back of someone's head, that is not your partner. Look the other way. If there is the odd three, it's fine. All good. The energy has changed already. The energy has changed already. If I could just get your attention again, this is awesome. Okay, folks, I just need your generosity of your attention for a second. Awesome. Awesome. I'm not going to complain at that. That's how it should feel throughout the next 2 days. But just to keep us moving along with some structure. So you've made friends, you've connected, there's already been a couple of handshakes, high fives, air kisses, all of that stuff. I'm sure you've had that conversation, how are you? So I'd just like you to join me in a playful exercise. What I'd like you to do is facing each other, looking each other square on in the face, with a big smile, eye contact, get over it, it's a bit weird, just keep doing it. What I'd love you to do, maintain that eye contact and a big smile, but as you do so, just raise your arms out to the side like a bit of an aeroplane. Yep, so, all good. Raise them just a little bit higher, Now what I want you to do is lean very gently to your left, which if there's two of you, should mean opposite directions. And all I'd love you to do now is just go in and give each other a big strong hug. And grab yourselves a seat, folks. Grab yourselves a seat. Well done. Grab yourselves a seat. Thank you for playing along. There we go. That's what you've learned from Google. Hugging. I promise you, that's the weirdest thing I'm going to ask you to do, by far. I'm pretty confident it's the weirdest thing you're going to get asked to do today and tomorrow in its entirety. However, a couple of reasons why we played that game. There was a purpose behind it, beyond the silliness and so on. The first is, and it helps me to land just the two big principles of how we need to show up to any situation where we want some fresh thinking, an alternative option to help us make a better decision around whatever it is we're doing. So two big principles, if you like. Number one is this: you don't have to be serious to solve serious issues. In fact, actually what we know about how our brains work, the minute you let the severity or the pressure or the deadline of a problem or something that you're working on take hold, your brain's ability to think differently about it and form some fresh connections in your head disappears. Entirely. So actually, we hear this from our founder at Google. Larry talks about this a long time. We don't have to be serious to solve serious challenges. And just because many of us work on serious stuff, actually doesn't mean we can't enjoy solving it. And so that's a big principle for today and tomorrow is enjoy it. There'll be times where you'll sit there and go, excuse my language, fuck. Like, what's going on? What does this mean for me? What does this mean for my business? What does this mean for me, my family, my mortgage? All those very human stuff. But there'll be things where you'll go, brilliant. I can't wait for this to happen. I can't wait to make some of this stuff happen. But just remember that the more that we relax and enjoy the next 2 days, the more you will get out of it. So number one principle. Number two is that when I got you to do that, particularly the hug, it was purposeful. We all had a varying reaction to it. It was a spectrum. Some of you would have been thinking, thank you, Kirk. I've been wanting to have bodily contact with this person for a long time. You've made it happen. What can I get you for coffee in the break? The other end of the spectrum will be, oh my God, this is everything I hate about this kind of stuff. I want the world to open up and swallow me whole. And there was probably some of that. And for the rest of us, we're somewhere in the middle. But I'm prepared to wager that for most of us, it was a little bit uncomfortable. Just because you didn't know where it was going, you had to trust me, you've only just met me. And there's a bit of, the context of being in business and hugging some of them perhaps you don't know. That's a good thing. Those butterflies in your stomach, we have all had them to some degree. That, for me, is the first stage gate of a good idea. of a good idea. Forget about money, forget about whether it's viable, forget about how disruptive it is. Actually, how uncomfortable we are around it is a great measure. Because if you don't have those butterflies, the chances are it's not that new, not that different, probably not going to give us a competitive edge. So my push is, push yourself to get uncomfortable. When you're listening to stimulus and in the workshops and thinking of things and you start to form some connections of ideas or start thoughts of things you might do back in your business, you challenge yourself. How uncomfortable am I around this? And if you are, there's something good in that. Now, there is a safe word, which is excited. If you're just uncomfortable, that's not always a good thing. So that's not it at all. But think about it. When you have those ideas, if an idea isn't, if an idea isn't at first crazy, then it probably doesn't have much merit in it. So push yourself to get uncomfortable about the thoughts, the ideas you have, and then go, but if we're still up for pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone, it's a good thing. So two big principles around today. But let's talk about what might stop that from happening. What stops us from being our best, thinking differently, exploring new options around the stimulus that we're going to absorb? Let's play a game. We're going to play a game. Back in your pairs. You sit down. It's a mental game, this one. So don't worry. There's no. You can hug if you like, if it helps you. I mean, there's a lot of evidence around bodily contact and our ability to think. So there we go. But it's a mental exercise, a brain teaser, if you like. So I'm looking. The answer is a number. It's one number, and I'm looking for the reason why it's that number. Okay, that's more important than the number itself. So here we go. If idea equals 7, innovation equals 17, creativity equals 24, and insight equals 17, what does behaviour equals? When you think you've got it, so you can stand up and bask in the glory. Let everyone look at you and go, what do they know? What do they know? Or you can just put your hand up and go, we've got it. But keep it to yourself and we'll let everyone play along. Folks, away you go. I'd say it's an interactive exercise. So have a chat. What do you think it is? Have a go. Go with it. Go with it. I'll give you a tip. I'll give you a tip straight away. There is no pattern in the numbers. There is no pattern in the numbers. I'll give you another tip. It's got nothing to do with innovation or creativity. Nothing to do with creativity and innovation. It's not 0. But hey, we could keep just shouting it out. We'll get there eventually. Okay, let me give you another clue. The person who did this the fastest, the person I've seen do this the fastest was a Chinese lady. She didn't speak English. She'd never even seen the English or Roman alphabet at all. Never even seen the letters that we were speaking. So she was not looking at words. There we go. Keep going. I guess the question is, what was she looking at to be able to get this really quick? There you go, keep going. Okay, I'm going to accelerate the process. That equals 2, just so you know. So whatever that equals, that equals 2. Oh, keep going. Anyone? Oh, come on, there's got to be someone who's getting it. What does... That's not Mandarin, by the way. That's not. That also equals 2. So I guess the question is, what does that have 2 of? That has 2 of. That creativity has 24 of.
Scrabble score.
It's not Scrabble score, no. It's got nothing to do with English words or letters. Come on, folks. Wow.
70.
Oh, awesome. Right, let's drill in. So the answer we've given is 17. So, and why is it 17?
Edges or
Endpoints. Endpoints. So it's the open-ended points. So that has 2 open-ended points. So does that. And therefore, a B has no open-ended points, but an E has 3, an H has 4, an R has 2. The answer is 17. A round of applause. There we go. Look at that. Basking in your glory. Awesome. Thank you for playing along. Well done. High fives. I love it. There we go. Big hugs again. All good. So, thanks for playing along. Make your peace with it. Don't worry. Make your peace. Make your peace. I did not play that game to make you feel silly. And actually, it's your intelligence that makes it hard to play that game, essentially. Why I did play that game was because it helps us just to land what goes on in our brain every single day around every single challenge, opportunity, problem we face. Because left to its own devices, our brain's only goal is efficiency. That's it. It's got too much to do to worry about anything else. So it relies on efficiency. Efficiency comes from past knowledge, experience, or information around that challenge, that situation you're facing, or one a bit like it. A bit like it. And that was what was going on in your brain. And actually, the more important, the more pressurized, the more urgent the thing you're working on, the more your brain does this. And let me give you a metaphor to bring it to life a bit more. Anyone heard of Edward de Bono? Edward de Bono, a Maltese professor, awesome dude, quite a modest man, calls himself the godfather of creativity. There we go. At Google we can call ourselves what we like as well, so it's fine. But actually, fair play to him. In the 60s and 70s, he was articulating the relationship between how our brains work and creativity well before technology proved him right. And he had a brilliant metaphor. You might have heard of things like 6 thinking hats and so on. That was some of his stuff. This is one of his least used metaphors, but actually I think by far the most powerful when it comes to creative thinking, fresh ideas. Because he said, imagine the day you're born, your brain is like a mountain. It's an untouched, unspoiled mountain. From that day onwards, every piece of knowledge, information, or experience that you have is like a raindrop falling on that mountain. Now, fast forward a few years, and you start to acquire lots of information, knowledge, and experience in life. Your brain is a self-organizing system, so for efficiency, it starts to cluster things together, box them, if you like, together for efficiency of recall. So that feels a bit similar. That's a similar experience. I'll group them together, called these streams of consciousness. Now, fast forward 20, 30, 40 years that you're alive or more, the things that you're paid to be an expert in, your hobbies, your passions, your families, hands up if you've worked in your organisation for a year or more. 3 years or more, 5 years, 10 years. Wow. In this room, we've probably got over 2,000 years of experience and knowledge and information of how things are done at my company, how things are done around here. And he calls these rivers of thinking. Now, vast, deep channels of knowledge, information, and experience of how things were solved or faced in the past. These are brilliant if there is only one right answer. If there's one right answer, your deep, wide river of thinking is great because it's in there, your autopilot brain will get there and it's all good. However, the minute that there is more than one potential right answer or way of approaching or dealing with this challenge or opportunity that we've got, rivers of thinking are terrible because your brains don't want to get out of it. Hands up if when I showed you that task, you immediately who started to try and look for a pattern in the numbers? Yeah, so your brains went, I've seen this before, something like it, not this exact one, but it's one of those things we played as a kid. And so your brain, without any prompt at all, just says there's often a pattern in the numbers. I stopped that being the case. Then you start, hands up if you started to think about, value in innovation or some kind of innovation process. Yeah, right, good, etc. But eventually, probably most of us ended up thinking about consonants and vowels. A equals 1, B equals 2, etc., etc. Yeah, a few people there. That's how rivers are thinking at play. And the trick here is just always assume you're in one. This is the core of the work I do at Google around sort of behavioural creativity as human beings. And I see, you sort of tell Googlers and they go, great, thank you, I'm cured, you've cured me. I'll never be in a river of thinking again. It's not the case. And it's not a bad thing either at all, because they help us to survive and be efficient. But it's important to know only 2% of the world are wired differently to the rest of us. In terms of neurological pathways where they might not have same rivers of thinking as the rest of us. Again, at Google, when I say that to a big conference like this of Googlers, you can see half the room going, probably me. Probably me. It's not at all. You know, we wouldn't find those people in everyday business. So the only thing you can do around any challenge or situation you face is just acknowledge that you are in a river of thinking about it, and then get out of it. And we do that in two ways. Stimulus and provocation, technique, essentially, whether it's a design thinking approach or whether it's using creativity-based techniques or tools, we can trick our brains. I tricked your brain, I forced your brain. What did I fundamentally say that for most of you forced you to start to think about that challenge in a different way? I said something. I gave you a piece of provocation. Chinese lady. So then your brain went, this can't be about numbers, values, letters, etc. It's got to be something else. And then you're out of your river of thinking and you're approaching the challenge in a different way. So that's all good. And we could talk about that all day. But for me, I go, I think I last looked on Amazon, there's 27,000 books all around creative thinking techniques. All brilliant. Go and buy a couple. There's one which is 1,000 creative thinking techniques. That's probably a good one. It's quite value, I'd say. It's good value. But actually, the bit I just want to land in the last couple of minutes is actually what's really important is how we are, how we behave, the conditions we create, the mental conditions we create in order to be at our best. It's as simple as that. Let me ask you the question. Where are you when you do your best thinking? For me, it's walking the dog. It's just out walking the dog. What is it for other people? Shout it out. Be generous. So, pub, do we have pub? Did someone say the pub? Yes, brilliant, awesome. 1.5 units of alcohol, optimal amount. At Google, they talk about beer for ideas, coffee to make them happen. That's what they talk about. There we go. So, but there we go. But it's just, it's not just the chemical thing. It's just being in that environment, whether it's a coffee shop or a pub, where you're just more used to just being with friends, kicking stuff about in a relaxed way. Yeah, there's definite science around the pub. Shower we had. What else? Walking, running. Yeah, running's a big one. Shower, sorry, say again. Anything else? Any others?
In bed, waking up.
Right, in bed, that middle of the night, hands up if you had the best idea in the world at midnight, couldn't remember it the next day. Damn it. There we go. No coincidence that you say the places you say. It's no coincidence also that I've asked that question of, 50,000 people around the world, and no one in all seriousness has ever said, at my desk, in front of my computer, with the face of doom, because I've got a deadline to meet and a problem to solve. In fact, for most people, it's anywhere but at work. And there's a real science behind this. I'm going to give you a very light touch because I'm not an expert in this this area. Although I was lucky enough, I spoke at a pharmaceutical conference a little while ago. And the room was full of 200 neurochemists. So if ever there's an audience, but what was quite nice, I was getting coffee after, and one of the neurochemists came over and he said, everything you just shared about the brain, it was all correct. I was like, oh, thank you. As he walked off, he went, if a little basic. So there we go. So that's the context in which I'm sort of sharing it. But just imagine, your conscious is your working part of the brain, the subconscious is your storeroom. Your rivers of thinking are all in that storeroom. Everything you know or experience is in there somewhere. And we need to, and it's the connection between the two that helps us to develop fresh thoughts, new ideas, fresh connections between the challenges that we're working on. And I'm going to give you just four very quick, a minute summary of the 4 different brain frequencies that we will be in any 24-hour period that help us to unlock that subconscious in a different way. Number 1 is delta. It's when you're fast asleep, deep restorative sleep. The doorway between the conscious and the subconscious is at its most open, unlimited ability. Brilliant, awesome. Next one, theta. Almost like a hypnotic, semi-hypnotic, meditative state. Just as you're falling asleep, just as you're waking up, or repetitive physical motion, anything that is almost distracting the conscious brain. Next one, alpha, doorway just a little bit closed, more than enough for us to access new and different stuff within it. And this is when we are relaxed but focused. Relaxed but focused. We've got a task to do, but we're not burdened by the pressure of the deadline or the importance of it. And last but not least is beta. Doorway fully closed. scientifically impossible for your conscious brain to access anything new from the subconscious other than what your autopilot brain has pre-edited for you in that kind of fight or flight moment. Let's get it done, let's move on, if you like, around that. So 4 frequencies that we all are in at any given point in a 24-hour cycle for most of us. 2 of these are no good whatsoever. Which 2 do you think we're going to discount immediately? Beta and delta. So actually, let's get rid of delta, but actually let's give delta its credit. Have a good night's sleep. It's good. It's good. You know, long gone is the badge of honour of pulling an all-nighter, thankfully. You know, if we want to be at our best mentally, most of us in this room are knowledge workers. We're paid for our brains, but recognise the importance of physically being rested and at our best in order if we're going to have do our best work. So not much we can do to harness that in the moment, but just value it. Next one we're going to get rid of is beta. Busy beta. Ever heard the expression, I'm too busy to think? That's where that comes from. Just too much stuff going to your brain. Too many signals, stress, information overload, whatever it is. The burden of time and pressure, which I'm under now, so I will move quickly. Email and social notifications. Biggest cause of beta. Just too much stuff. We're addicted to it. We could talk about that for forever. So that leaves us with these 2. Theta. What I'd say about theta is that kind of task negative mode. You know, it's when you're not thinking about the challenge that you're working on. You know, it's the reason why most of us think we're most creative on our own, because it's when we're going for a walk or running that things start to fall together and make that connection. So we need that. We need that creative reflection time. It's why at Google we have sleep pods. 20 minutes. 20 minutes is not enough for us to fall into delta. It's a brilliant thing for us to stay in theta. 20-minute sleep pods. Go to the gym. The ability to get out and go for a walk. All those things. But ultimately, it's about alpha. Just create focus. I see it all the time. Meeting rooms that just have laptops open. People doing their emails whilst they're there. You know, digital distracted. So I think the push here is just create more alpha. Create focus. If you're in a group of people, yeah, absolutely, value theta, you know, that reflective time. How do you make that part of your day? But actively create alpha-like moments, relaxed but focused, if you want to solve a problem every day. I'm not talking about space elevators or entrepreneurial, what could the world look like? I'm talking about everyday challenges or problems that we want some fresh thinking around. So that's it, folks. Recognise you have an autopilot brain. We all have it. So just recognise it and go, what is it and how do I get out of it? How do I get out of it? Loads of techniques, but ultimately, value task negative state. Value theta. Value theta as part of your day-to-day. Guilt-free. Go to the gym. When you're working on an email and it feels like you're a bit stuck, get out and just go and get a coffee and go for a walk. You know, we all do it. We all know it enough that we come back and our ability to move forward is so much more improved. Guilt-free, value that, and encourage it of your teams as well as leaders. But then also deliberately engineer relaxed but focused conditions when you want you and others to be at their best to come up with new ideas. Finally, just to finish, we started with a bit of energy. We're going to finish with a bit of energy. Who likes karaoke? Anyone like karaoke? Good stuff. We're going to do some karaoke. One of you is going to come up here and join me to do some karaoke. Elton John and Kiki D, Don't Go Breaking My Heart. I can do both, just so you know, so I'm happy. We've got the instrumental music. We're going to sing along. I've already decided who that person's going to be. Under one of your seats is a post-it note that says it's me. Have a look. If it's you, jump up here, join me. There is no post-it note. There is no post-it note. But folks, just a reminder, anyone have the butterflies? That's not a good thing. On its own, that's not a good thing. But remember, get uncomfortably excited about what you're doing and push on through. Thank you for your time listening to me, folks. Enjoy your day.